Hey, this is Kyle from Pure Storage, and today we're going to walk you through a new innovation that we're particularly excited about in VMware Cloud Foundation 4.1, which is both vVols as well as iSCSI. This is the first time iSCSI will be available as a principal storage option within VCF 4.1. This is a rough outline of the process we're going to follow in this technical demo. Add VASA, configure iSCSI on ESXi hosts, do some protocol endpoints, and then commission the actual workload domain itself. The first thing to note within SDDC Manager, which is new in version 4.1, is that you do have the iSCSI network type available, and you do need to create this for an iSCSI network for your host to be able to use along with vMotion. Here we can see we've got an iSCSI FlashArray that we're going to be using. And then, of course, we've also got the array name down here, which I will show in just a second. The other new thing within SDDC Manager is this storage settings option. This is where you add VASA provider, which is what enables vVols communication between vCenter and the underlying FlashArray. In this case, we'll give it a descriptive name, which ends in CT0, because that's controller 0. This URL is the IP address of that controller with port 8084. The next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and add a vVols specific user to the FlashArray, which we're doing here. And then we'll hop back over, add that user here. This is for VASA registration only. Container type, you have to enter vVol container. And then container type, again, is going to be the iSCSI protocol. So go ahead and click save. We can see our VASA entry is now there. So the next step is going to be to enable software iSCSI on our workload domain ESXi hosts. I'm only going to show this once, just to save time. But as you can see, you click on enabled, you grab the IQN. We'll go ahead and copy that over to our FlashArray. There's a host entry that I've already made. We'll paste in that IQN from VMware. Go back over here. The other thing we need to do is grab one IP address for iSCSI from the array, and we'll use dynamic discovery. So we'll go down to dynamic target, populate it with that FlashArray iSCSI IP address, and then save it. Let it configure, and then if we go back to look at it, we can see that it's automatically populated the remaining iSCSI targets on that array. So we'll go through and skip some time and do those other three hosts, and then we'll create a host group on our FlashArray. We'll add all four of the hosts that we're going to use as this workload domain to it. And then the next step is to connect the protocol endpoint to it prior to workload domain commissioning. So there we can see our pure protocol endpoint is connected to that host group. And so now we can proceed with adding our hosts to SDDC Manager. We put in the FQDN, again, select the protocol type, which is iSCSI, our network pool, which we looked at the beginning of this video, and then root credentials for that ESXi host. Again, I'll skip time here and add the remaining 3 ESXi hosts to this commissioning wizard. And then we'll go ahead and confirm their fingerprints and then validate that they are indeed ready for use and commission them. Okay, so now all 4 of these hosts have been commissioned for use. So the next step is that we can now proceed with our workload domain deployment. We'll select the vVol storage selection. And then I'll speed it up a little bit here, just because most VCF folks are probably going to be familiar with a lot of this stuff already. We're giving it a cluster name. We've pre-populated vCenter within DNS, so that populates the IP address that we've assigned to it. We already have one workload domain set up, so we're just going to join to our existing NSXT instance. So here's the new vVols storage area. You can see we'll select the iSCSI type. Our array that we registered at the beginning of this video is the VASA provider. That vVol storage container, again, that vVol container part is required. Our VASA user, and then we will provide a descriptive name for our vVol data store. That maps to the 4 hosts that we previously commissioned. And so we'll select all 4 of those. I'll skip the license phase, no offense. And then we can see we've got an iSCSI port group here that will be created as part of the virtual distributed switch as part of this workload domain. And last but not least, of course, we have a summary screen just to show everything that we've already selected. So that kicks off our workload domain deployment. If we look at some of the tasks that are shown as part of that workload domain deployment process, there are a couple new ones I thought I'd highlight. Configure vVol data store, register VASA provider, and then also create an iSCSI VMNIC on the ESXi host. Skipping ahead, our vCenter for this workload domain has been deployed and is now up. Going to go ahead and log into it. We can see hosts have been added, and at this phase, we're actually going to go ahead and create those virtual volume data stores. This is obviously a good sign because since these virtual volume data stores are now being created, we can also confirm that our storage provider has been registered against vCenter. This is the storage provider that we put into SDDC Manager, and we can see it's that the URL is there that we as we entered it as well. Okay, so we'll take another pause here while this workload domain completes. We did install the Pure vSphere plugin, which I highly recommend doing at this phase. There are a couple last items to do to finish this workload domain deployment. First, we register that iSCSI array. We will register storage provider against this vCenter. This is to get the other controller 1's VASA registered against this workload domain instance. So if we go over to storage providers, we can now see that in addition to controller 0, we now have controller 1 for that underlying FlashArray registered. Very useful for failover type things. Last thing we will do is configure iSCSI, and this will apply all of our iSCSI best practices against those underlying ESXi hosts in this workload domain. With that, you can start using this workload domain as normal. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time.